So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and those who are joining from outside India, a very good morning, a good evening, and good afternoon to you all. I welcome you all for today's e-conference on paints and coatings, challenges and opportunities, organized by Indian Chemical News in collaboration with Agilent Technologies. Myself, Praveen Prashant, editor, Indian Chemical News, will be your host and moderator for today's e-conference. The supporting partner, next slide. The supporting partner for today's e-conference is Agilent Technologies. Let me introduce you to our speakers for today's e-conference. Mr. Dhiresh Goshalia, Chairman and Managing Director, Jessens Industries Limited. Let me also give you a brief about Mr. Dhiresh ji. He has over 30 years of experience and is the founder and promoter of Jessens Industries Limited, one of the specialty coating emulsions and water-based pressure-sensitive adhesives in tape and label segments in India. Jessens has 6 manufacturing plants across India and also has a technology center. He has done his graduation in chemistry and management and is an alumnus of the Harvard Business School. Mr. Sagar Goyal, he wears 2 hats, President Indian Paint and Coating Association and also Managing Director of Ariol Rubbers Private Limited, and is one of the largest distributors of paints, coatings, construction, chemicals in North India. He is also an active philanthropist and is in board of several education and religious institutions. He has adopted Aditya Public School, which provides education to 120 children. And he is also a trustee of Maharaja Agrasen Hospital in Delhi. Mr. Devajit Som, Group Managing Director, Colorscapes Group. He has more than 24 years of experience working in Colorscapes Group, Ruffles, Color Pigments International, South Africa Pty Limited, Tata International, Thermax Limited, Raj Industries Limited, and Tractel Tri-Ford Limited. He has done his BTech in Chemical Engineering from Regional Engineering College, Trichy. Mr. Bipul P. Shah, Chairman and Managing Director, Bipul Organics Limited, a leading name in dyes and pigments in Indian and global markets. A chemical engineer with over 3 decades of experience in dye stuffs and chemicals business. He has been instrumental in making Bipul Organics into a holistic dyes and pigments company that has one-stop products and solutions. His core focus has been forward and backward integration, thereby taking Bipul Organics product to more than 50 countries and establishing high-end manufacturing facilities at par with those available anywhere in the world. He enjoys music and loves singing. Mr. Ashok Kumar Gain, Joint Managing Director, Acro Paints Limited, a SME manufacturer of architectural and specialized paints with major operations in North India. He has over 40 years of experience in manufacturing, operations, and marketing in the paint sector. He has traveled around the world. And developed business relations with companies in related fields. He has been actively associated with IPCA, and has been its past president. He has postgraduate in business management and started his career in 1977. Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, Head of Technical PPG Asian Paints Private Limited, which is a joint venture between PPG and Asian Paints. He has more than 30 plus years of work experience in R&D for paint segments such as automotive, OEM, automotive refinish, industrial coatings, marine and decorative etc. in a leadership role. Dr. Shoma Dasgupta, Application Engineer, GC/MS, Agilent Technologies. She brings over 15 years of research experience with gas chromatography, allowing her to explore many aspects of this analytical technique to solve questions from different sectors ranging from safety to pharmaceuticals. Prior to joining Agilent Technologies, she performed her doctorate research at the University of Pune, where she concentrated on developing comprehensive methods for analysis of agrochemicals in fruits and vegetables. She has worked with Thermo Fisher Scientific for 3 years as application specialist. She has more than 25 publications and applications note to her credit and a book chapter. Next slide, please. Let me take you to the key discussion points for today's e-conference. Growth in paints and coatings industry in India, new innovations in the industry, protecting its turf due to increased competition. Will distribution strategy need a rethink? How housing for all will change the dynamics? Balancing growth and sustainability, impact of strict governmental and environmental regulations, impact of raw materials on companies' finances, common facilities for paints and coatings MSMEs, which can be supported by government/industry associations. Next slide. We have the upcoming e-conference, which is on June 22nd on ports enabling growth of chemical industry, and a 2-day summit that we do have. This is the second edition of the Next Gen Chemicals and Petrochemical Summit 2022. This is still in a virtual mode. I would request all my delegates to please register for the e-conference and Next Gen Chemicals and Petrochemical Summit by visiting Indian Chemical News website. Next slide. We also are doing a paint and coating summit. This is a 1-day seminar or / conference that we are organizing in Bombay, and it will be called Paints and Coating Summit 2022, planned in September of 2022. Next slide. This is an interactive session. So what I have done is we have this ICN Play and Win contest. Just wanted to brief you about the contest. I, being the moderator, shall be asking questions from the audience during the course of the session, and the one who responds first with the correct answer stands eligible for winning ₹1,000 gift voucher from Amazon. All the questions will be asked by the moderator of the session, and the replies need to be given in the chat window. I repeat, the replies need to be given in the chat window box of your respective screen on Zoom platform. But if you reply on the Q&A window, you will be disqualified. Final winners to be announced at the close of the e-conference session at 4:30 p.m. IST. Terms and conditions. Only the person with the correct answer responding first in order of priority shall be declared winner. Organizers and sponsor partner employees are not eligible to participate in the contest. Organizers' decisions to be treated final in case of any discrepancies. Gift vouchers to be sent electronically to all the winners post completion of the session. Next slide. So before I start the panel discussion, let me ask Dr. Soma Dasgupta, Application Engineer, GC/MS, Agilent Technologies, to give her presentation. And I would request all the delegates to listen to her presentation carefully, because all the 3 questions that I'm going to ask you will be based on her presentation. So over to Dr. Soma Dasgupta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this generous introduction, and a warm welcome to all the participants, all the delegates and the panelists over here. We hope you all are doing safe and well in this challenging times. Of course, things have changed for the better now. So we'll today be talking about paints and coatings, mainly about the instrumental techniques and the tests and the analysis that are done. So we would be moving ahead in the slides and looking at the different types of tests which are done. So before that, I would like to start with a brief history about Agilent. So Agilent's history dates back to around 1939, when HP, Hewlett Packard, those who manufacture computers now, that was established as a test and measurement company. So Agilent has spun out of HP in 1999, and over the years, we have transformed from a diversified technologies company to a measurement company. And today's Agilent focuses on life sciences, diagnostics, and applied chemical markets. So consequently, we have a number of products which are meant to analyze different types of samples which come in from these sectors. So that ranges from chemicals, specialty chemicals, it could be from the hydrochemical sector, pharmaceuticals, or even day-to-day commercial lab testings, where contract-based samples are being analyzed. So we have a wide portfolio of instruments which are used for meeting this test conditions and the test regulations. So generally, when it comes to coatings and optics, paint analysis has been historically performed for deformulation, reverse engineering, quality control, safety, regulatory compliance, defect analysis, forensics. And when it comes to art, it is about conservation and restoration in art and archaeology. So whether a manufacturer or a user is involved in developing a coating system or uses a coating in their own products or applications, they are constantly striving to meet the ever increasing demands of the coating function, performance, longevity, and whether it is designed for industrial, protective, architectural, or for specialty applications, Agilent has certain solutions which can provide answers to this requirement. And some of the most pressing applications are handled by Agilent's instruments, and that's how we help our customers resolve their answers or resolve their issues. So broadly, any sort of analytical testing can be classified into two sections. One is the destructive analysis and the other one is the non-destructive analysis. So destructive analysis usually involves transformation of the samples in terms of a sample preparation procedure and then introducing it to the instrument where it is converted into viable forms by which the instrument measures it. And non-destructive analysis is where the sample remains as it is and the nature of the sample is not disturbed. So one such technique that we use in the paints and coating industries is that for FTIR. So, and once this data has been acquired, our softwares will help you in identification, both in the traditional way, where we are identifying the samples with respect to a library-based search, or we are doing an advanced testing in terms of classification, separating them into groups, where we have software solutions for making PCA plots, or you can group materials based on their chemical characteristics or elemental composition, and then try to check whether your current sample meets or falls within one of these groups or it falls beyond that group. So here's a screenshot of the Agilent's F4300 handle FTIR, which is generally used for non-destructive testing, and it allows completely non-experienced as well as experienced users to quickly analyze on the go. And these are handheld systems and can be taken along with you to the site of measurement. And users can, the setup of the system is such that you can easily transition from one sample to the another. There are no alignment or adjustment necessary. You can simply change the sampling interference. So that will include, basically that would include a wide range of samples. So you don't have to make any special sample preparation protocols or any sample preparation arrangements for that. So these kind of systems can be used for analysis of polymers, coatings, composites, bulk material, cleaning verification, and even for historical artifacts or artworks, where without any destruction to the system, you can test the composition of the system. The next system which can be used for analysis of polymers is the GPC system, which has got multiple detectors. So we can connect the GPC system to an RI detector, a viscosity detector, and a light scattering detector. So for the polymers which are used, there's a special type of chromatography which is done through the GPC system, and these detectors in combination will help in finding the molecular weight as well as the polydispersity, that is the range of the polymers which is present in the sample. So this can be used for characterization purposes. You can use this for QC type of testings as well. And typical applications would involve epoxy resins, polyester resins, silicone fluids, or polyolefin waxes. The workflow generally involves dissolving the polymer in a suitable solvent. So mostly we use THF, these type of solvents. And then the sample is injected into the GPC system. And after it is separated into its constituent polymers, monomers, based on the polydispersity of or the molecular weight of that particular polymer, then it is exposed to the viscosity detector and the light scattering detector, which gives you an idea about the molecular weight as well as the polydispersity. So there are also additional information which can be obtained, which involves the radius of the polymer as well as the size and shape of the polymer. So that will, the result comes in the forms of figures, which can be easily interpreted to find out the shape, whether it is in a rod form or it's in a spherical form. So that will give an idea about the shape of the polymer. So at Agilent, we have a ready-made database where when you move on to the coatings and the polymer pages of our webpage, you will find the instrument which is required to perform this analysis, and the set of columns, the set of standards, and also the methods and the analysis options to readily implement these for analysis of your samples. So basically, the same system can be used as an HPLC for use as an RI detector, UV, then evaporative light scattering, or it can also be hooked to a MS system, or it can be used with an FLD detector as well. So the detector system which you see on the top is for room temperature measurements. That is when the sample is soluble in room temperatures. Generally, as far as my understanding goes, most of the polymers or these kind of resins which are used in the paints and coating industries, they are soluble in organic solvents in room temperature. But there are certain types of materials such as polypropylene, typically the Tupperware type of materials, which are not soluble in an organic solvent under room temperature. So they require a very high temperature. So there we have a specialized system where the entire system is held at a higher temperature for around 140 degrees, and then it is dissolved in a suitable solvent and then injected onto the system. So both applications or measurements at room temperature as well as higher temperature can be performed using these two systems. So in summary, the detector for the GPSS system, because polymers, each and every test or the regulation that you follow or the requirement that you have, that will mainly that will guide the kind of detector which is required for the analysis. So if it's only molecular weight calculation along with calibration, an RID system can be used. Whereas if there is a requirement of molecular weight calculation with universal calibration or absolute molecular weight copolymers, and all the applications are listed over here, RG, RH size, then we need to combine an RI detector along with a viscometer. Similarly, you can also connect it with RI detector with a light scattering detector. The green colored fields over here are the applications which can be done specifically with these detectors. And finally, with the triple detection system or the multi-detection system, where all these three detectors are combined in a row, we can measure all these parameters. So based on the type of sample information required, the system can be configured as per the user's choice. Now, when it comes to another set of regulations which comes into the paints and coating industries, that is the REACH regulation. So these regulations mandate a large number of compounds which are to be analyzed in all types of chemical materials. So there we use LCMS and GCMS solutions. So REACH regulation involves a large number of compounds, and the full form of REACH is registration, evaluation, authorization, restriction of chemicals, and it addresses the production and use of chemical substances and their potential impact on human health and environment. So, and parallelly, there is another regulation called as RoHS, which is in case of electrical and electronic equipment. So all the compounds which are analyzed in RoHS are also analyzed by REACH, and REACH applies to anything, almost literally anything and everything, and it controls all chemicals that might be used to manufacture the product, which includes enclosures, brackets, coatings, paints, solvents, and chemicals which are used during the manufacture. So in line with REACH, which is a European regulation, India is also coming up with a chemical management system, which is till now in a draft stage and was expected to be released somewhere in August this year. So I do not have the timeline of when it is supposed to be rolled out, but the draft regulations are there available on the web page to be browsed through. So there are more than 700 chemicals which are listed over there. Some of them are priority chemicals which need to be analyzed or tested. And the major objective of this regulations is to ensure chemical safety so that the risks to human health as well as environment can be minimized. So in LCMS, we will check for chemicals such as the dyes and azo-dyes and these type of compounds. Whereas in case of GCMS, we check mainly for the volatile components, which are PAHs, PCBs. It could also be residual solvents such as benzene, toluene, xylene. So these compounds can be analyzed. Both LCMS and GCMS requires a bit of sample preparation. So either the sample is extracted with a suitable solvent, or we can do a soft slit based extraction, bring it to an injectable form, and then inject onto the system. Now, corresponding to every sample, this is compared against a calibration curve of known standards. And once each standard will contain multiple compounds. So we inject a series of standards or calibration standards first, which contain a number of compounds on an approximate around 100 plus compounds on the LCMS and 150 or so compounds on the GCMS system. Some may require a separate method, some may not, some may be combined in a single method. And the result output is read by the system software, where we inject different concentrations of the standard and then compare the sample against it, and the concentration of those compounds in the sample are reflected in the software. So here what you see is a screenshot of how it works. So here we have different concentrations of standards, the corresponding calibration curve, and the sample concentration is present here given. So this is one single sample where 5 different compounds, benzene, toluene, paraxylene, metaxylene, orthoxylene, and ethyl benzene have been quantified. So similarly, we can have more than 100 compounds, up to 200 compounds, depending of course on the compound nature and the type of compound being analyzed. These can be analyzed by the GCMS and the LCMS system. So in short, all the regulations or the QC parameters or the characterization type of experiments which needs to be done, all these instruments are manufactured by Agilent, and we do have workflow solutions which where we help with a hand-holding sort of experience for our users, where they can run the systems along with ready-made methods. And all the systems are controlled by a common software called as Mass Hunter, which helps in setting up the methods, running the systems, as well as storage of the data and data analysis, printing of reports to predefined report templates. So that's all about Agilent and the solutions that we have for the paints and coatings industries. So with that, I would like to rest my presentation and pass it over to Mr. Praveen to take it further. Thank you for a patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. Soma Das Gupta, for a short presentation on Agilent and the different products that you talked about, whether FTIR or whether in terms of REACH regulations and the impact that will have to be made by the chemical industry, that extra effort to see that once it comes, we will have to see that we adhere to those regulations moving forward. Now, let me open the panel discussion. And the topic for today's e-conference is paint and coatings, challenges and opportunities. We have a very large group of speakers and stalwarts in the respective field with respect to paint and coating. So let me start with Mr. Dheeresh Goshalia, Chairman and Managing Director, Jashens Industries Limited. Sir, wanted to know from you the size and growth and the challenges in the paints and coating industry in India in, say, next 4 to 5 years. So over to Mr. Dheeresh Goshalia.
Thank you, Praveen ji, panelists, and the listeners, delegates of the e-conference. The total paint industry currently consists of decorative and industrial, and it is valued at about 61,000 crores. Now, this report is from Frost & Sullivan in the year 2021, what they took out. So 61,100 crores ka market hai ye. Now, talking about growth, first I will differentiate between industrial and decorative. So your decorative part hai, which is about 74% or 45,000 crores. So one can imagine decorative is a very big piece and 45,000 crore ka market hai. Going forward, we expect about a 13% GDP growth, 13%, and sorry, CAGR of 13%. And in next 2025, this will reach 122,000 crores of paint. So this is like a huge, humongous size. That is the reason why we are seeing so many new entrants and who have pledged a lot of big investments, which we all know about. Like Birla has pledged about 10,000 crore and JSW also. And I mean, they're all very big guns who are entering this. The last 5 years CAGR also has been healthy. About 11% growth has been seen. So this is about the growth in paints and coating industry.
So Direjji wanted to know from you, with the coming of these big guns, do you see that CAGR changing from say 13 to 20%? Or is it that they are going to take the market share from you all?
I guess the market will increase in size. It will not be, one replacing other much, but I'm seeing that, yeah, of course, on the top bracket, jahan pe dominance hai aaj, there could be a small level shift from the very big guns, like very, very big companies. But market, they will grow the market. The more inside, the merrier. That is what I presume.
And would you also give us, sir, some clue on urban versus rural or metro versus A, B, and C class cities? How is this market spread?
So exactly, I do not know about how it is spread, but a rough estimate could be that urban would be like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 city agar hum lenge, so I guess about 75% would be there, and the balance 25% would be in the cities where distribution is the issue.
Thank you, Direjji. Now I come to Mr. Sagar Goel, President of Indian Paint and Coating Association. Sagarji, if you can talk about, I'm posing you the same question, growth of paint and coating industry in India by 2025. How do you look at this industry?
Thank you very much, Prashantji, for inviting me to such a panel. And I also thankful to the Indian Paint and Coating Association for selecting me as their president. And as you are asking about the growth, Dhiresh Bhai has made it very simple that the Indian paint and coating industry is growing at a very, very rapid rate, 13 to 14%. And in this thing, the large big guns, as he said, are growing at a much higher speed. But as the new entrant, this Grasim has entered in the market, it has, some shackle, there is a shake in the big guns mind. So as the stock market has also shown some results, the big guns stock price has come down. But there is a worry for the MSME sector, because now it constitutes about 28% of the market share. And in the coming time, in the 4 to 5 years, this share, the total share, will go down to from 28% to 20%. Though in value term, as the industry is growing, so there is a, the growth will be there, but the MSME sector will not get as much as growth as the industry is growing. So the small companies should put their, horses tight in place and do innovation and enter into niche product categories.
So my second question to you, is it a challenge or it is an opportunity?
It is a challenge. Yeah, correct. It is very good question. Actually, this is a great challenge to the Indian paint industry because the financing costs and innovation centers, R&D centers, the big companies has an edge because they can buy their raw materials in a bulk quantity. So they have always an edge over MSME segment. And same is the case with the innovation. They have very small laboratories and they cannot, do their R&D properly, as big companies can change their products time to time and get their product on the right pricing. So this is a big challenge. Same is the problem with the branding of their products. Big companies have a large budget to get their products on TVs, on many channels, on many media channels, and get the premium of that. So small scale segment has a very limitation of getting the premium of their products.
Thank you, Sagar Goelji. Now I come to Debajit Som, Group Managing Director, Colorscapes Group. Sir, we wanted to know from you the global statistics and also the India statistics for paint and coatings market. And how do you see the market outlook for the next 5 years? So over to Mr. Debajit Som.
Good afternoon, all the panelists and Praveenji. I wanted to tell Mr. Sagar, we also have an organization in South Africa called South African Paint Manufacturing Association, SAPMA. So I'm in the executive committee there, and we have been tracking what's going on in the global market as well. Just to share with you some very interesting facts. Let's go from macro to micro into India. Now, if I look at the volume-wise, in 2015, the global paint production was to the tune of 9 billion gallon. And if we see it from 2015 onwards, it was flat. In 2016, it was again around 9 billion gallon. It went up by about close to 5% in 2017. Then 2018 again, another 2-3%. And 2019, it went up to 9.8 billion gallon. In 2020, due to pandemic, it's actually dropped by 3% in terms of volume of paint produced. 2021 again, it's coming back close to the value of 2019. If I go by, this is the fundamental. If we look at the liters, is what talks about the growth. Many times, value growth do not actually give the actual figures, because the price corrections are there, the raw materials prices are going up. So now out of this entire 9.8 billion gallon, 55% is Asia and 45% is rest of the world. Now, Asia Pacific. Now, if in terms of value, the global size in 2021 was $200 billion. That was the paint market globally. Now, growth for next 3 years, if we assume the same price level as 2021, before this, the madness happened in the raw material market, then it was supposed to grow at around 4%, but with all this price corrections that is happening, so in value terms, it will definitely show close to 15-16% global growth. Now, interesting facts here. If you look at in 1995, the per capita consumption of paint in India was 0.32 kilos, whereas the global average was close to about 11 kilos, and Asia Pacific was somewhere around 9.77 kilos. Currently, if you look at the lifestyle changes in India as a country, okay, Mr. Tiwari, I have adjusted the camera. Anyway, my okay. Now, if you look at, we have come from 1995, 0.32 per capita, with India growing and India's lifestyle changes. We are currently sitting at around 4.1 kg of paint consumption per capita. But again, if you look at now, how do we compare ourselves with the rest of the world? Now, in the rest of the world, the consumption is like, even in Asia Pacific, it is close to 9.5. You go to Germany or US or first world countries, it's about 13, 14 kgs. Now, if you look at that delta is so big that there is huge opportunity in Indian market for the paint consumption. And with the construction that is going on in India, with the GDP that is growing, it is actually we can expect a big growth in this industry in India. One more thing, we are talking about the consumption, but we have forgotten, we have not spoken about what is the export market, international market. If I see it from the consumption, production point of view from India. Now, the largest exporter of paint in the world is Germany. Now, Germany's current export is around $3.7 billion, followed by United States, about $2.4 billion. Number three is about Japan, $1.9 billion, Italy, $1.7 billion, Netherlands, France, next comes Netherlands, France, Belgium, UK is just below $1 billion. Spain is about $800 million. Now, if we come down, even Malaysia is around $268 million, Singapore $274 million. And if you look at India, India's current export of paint is only $44 million. Now, if you look at that chunk, I mean, one is a domestic consumption, which is going to grow anyway. And we see that a lot of investment that is going on and on the paint sector, the coating sector from the big boys. So I'm 100% sure the focus of these big boys will also be exporting paint out of India. So that means, although the global growth may be about 11% or 12% in terms of value, but there's a tremendous potential for India to grow. Anything else that I want to? Yeah, I have got one more data which I want to share. Maybe it will be interesting for people. I was talking about per capita consumption. In US, it is about 16 kilos. Singapore is close to 15. Canada is about 14. Malaysia is about 8.2. Thailand is 8. China is around 7. South Africa, because I'm from South Africa, that's why I'm mentioning it's not so significant volume, but then it's about 6.5. Indonesia is about 4.2, and India is currently at 4. So there lies the the gap, which will be our driving engine for the growth.
Thank you, Dewajit ji, for your extensive data mining that you put it in front of us. So India at 4.0, definitely there would be some growth in terms of consumption from 4.0 kg to wherever we want to go. and then a big export market from the 44 million that you just illustrated with us. So there is a big opportunity, and obviously these big guns who are coming are not only looking at the Indian market, but they would be also be looking at international or export market at the same time. Now I come back to Mr. Vipul Shah, Chairman and Managing Director of Vipul Organics Limited. Sir, you would request if you can throw more light on the color and the pigment, which is an important part, and the other things which go into the paint making industry. What's innovation happening in this, and how it can have an improved quality and better supply chain support for paints and coatings industry. So over to Mr. Vipul Shah, Chairman and Managing Director, Vipul Organics Limited. If you can unmute yourself, sir.
Is it okay now? Yeah,
Now
sorry.
we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry for that. So good afternoon, everyone. As speaker before me spoke about the huge potential in the growth of the paint and coating industries. But then pigment or the color, which is one of the most important ingredients for any paint and coating industries, needs an attention. Traditionally, Clariant, BASF, these players were dominating as one of the largest supplier for the paint and coating industries. Blues and greens were dominated by the Indian companies, and azo pigments, that is red, yellows, and orange, were always the Chinese monopoly. But slowly, this trend is changing. India is emerging as one of the strong supplier, quality product supplier of pigment in case of azo pigments as well. So definitely we are still holding the forte of phthalocyanine pigments, but along with the phthalocyanines, the entire world is looking at India as a good manufacturer of azo pigments. And a lot of changes are happening in azo pigments. Like for example, traditional azo pigments are now getting modified for a better performance, a good hiding power, a bright shade. There are a lot of high performance pigment synthesis are happening, which can further create improvement in the properties, because any pigment, any paint industries would be looking for a few basic parameters like a good hiding power. So new developments are strongly happening. High performance pigments are gradually picking up in India. Also, India, I mean, we are successful right now in creating a substitute for the lead pigments, because there are some lead pigments still available in India and still used by India and some other countries, like chrome pigments. But I mean, most of these inorganic pigments are prohibited.
I would request all other speakers to keep,
most of the, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear.
Inorganic pigment.
I would request all other speakers to keep their
all panels can see
the mute. Some sound which is coming, so I would request all to keep their phones or laptops on mute. Please go ahead, sir.
So as I said, along with the organic pigments, a lot of things are happening as a replacement of the lead-based pigments, and successfully the developments have been done replacing the main chrome pigments like lemon chrome, scarlet chrome, and the middle chrome. India is doing very strongly on this particular replacement. Second development which is happening is creating the pigments which are more suitable for a water-based system, because many paint industries are now looking to replace the solvent system, and they prefer an aqueous-based, water-based system. So improvements are strongly happening on the pigments having an excellent compatibility with the water-based system. So these are the new developments are happening with the Indian pigment companies. The biggest, I would say, the happening is India is giving a big fight to the Chinese forte of manufacturing of azo pigments. So things are excellent in terms of this particular development. Even the traditional azo pigments, like for example, the biggest paint company in India, they are using one of the pigment, yellow 74, for example.
We have missed Vipulji because of bad connection. We will come back to him. In the meanwhile, I would request Mr. Ashok Kumar Gan, Joint Managing Director, Acro Paints Limited, if he can throw light on the new innovations which will help MSME players in the paint and coating industry in India. So over to Mr. Ashok Kumar Gan.
So sorry, there was some signal problem. So India is strongly heading towards the azo manufacturing and high performance pigment, sir.
Thank you, Vipulji. I come to now Mr. Ashok Kumar Gan, Joint Managing Director, Acro Paints Limited. Over to Mr. Ashok Kumar Gan. Ashokji, if you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Coming to your question, you see, the innovations that are required for SME players, especially for SME players in paint and coating industry, you see, they become very essential in the context of the scenario changing in the industry. Like the earlier speakers, they've told that Birla Grasim Industries is going to invest about 10,000 crores. They're already going to be there in about 1.5 to 2 years time. Then the other big, I'm talking about other big four players. Asian is investing 960 crores to expand its Ankleshwar plant. Berger is putting up a greenfield project near Naklau with an investment of 700 crores. And then Kansai Nerolac is coming up with another project, a new factory in near Visakhapatnam. Now, all these things, why I'm telling you these things is, you see, I've heard the earlier speakers, they say, and one of the speakers told that there is a huge scope. Yes, there is a tremendous scope to be exploited, but with the infrastructure or the other other operators with the SME people, the wedge between them and the deep pocketed these big players, the benefit would accrue to these big people. As earlier people have also mentioned that about 74 to 75% of the decorative market is with the big player, and they together, these four of them constitute about 52% of the decorative architectural paints market. Now, you know, about 5 years ago, the share of the SME was about 35%, which today has been reduced to, let us say, 26%. And in today's times, fast times, I foresee that the share would tremendously come down. Now, coming to the specific, your specific question, that what new innovations should be adopted by people to grow their market or to build their sustenance in the market. So see, in today's Corona's times, antivirus paints have come out now. So they are one of the very big hits And then you have hygiene paints are another option for as an innovative product. If you're talking about innovative products, then low VOC paints are there. Is a very tremendous demand of hospitals paints now. Everybody is asking for hygiene paints and specific hospital paints. Then you have a huge market. All the big fours are there in anti-dust paints, damp resisting paints. Then there is a category called air purifying paints where you are absorbing formaldehyde being released. And then we have energy saving paints. It's a huge market. It has grown to about 700 crores with the advent of that roof coatings that we have. Then we have wood coatings, newer pew wood coatings, again growing at a very fast pace of about 30%. Then in innovation, you have construction chemicals, huge market is cropping up. Then a very specific innovation can be if the SME people can execute big projects. That's a huge market, untapped market, which nobody is particularly basing this. That is about 15% of the market is execution of the projects, big projects. And then you see the biggest innovation that is going to come up is, like the earlier people also said, that is R&D to be adopted by SME people, MSME people. With R&D, with innovativeness in our new products, we can save on money and make more profit. Then substitution of raw materials, that is another huge saving would be there, where we can increase our profits. Then of course, automation, where we lag in the SME sector against the big people. The automation or the obsolete methods of manufacturing are, again, as Sagarji said, it is putting up a huge cost on our operations. Then the last point I would emphasize is, somebody said niche paints. Niche is the only surviving factors that SME would have, differentiating themselves, emphasizing on products that the large scale is not concentrating on. That is a huge opportunity with that, where we tend to have more profits, tend to have not 1 to 3% profits, but you tend to have 8 to 10% net profits in that. So we should concentrate on niche products in a very big way. So that is innovativeness you need to have it in paints and coatings.
Thank you, sir. You very elaborately talked about all kinds of paints, and we were not aware, and many of them would not be aware. And there are a lot of new trends which are coming up, depending upon what market vertical that they are planning to focus on. And this will keep on increasing the kind and the specialty paints that you talked about. But that is the need of the hour. If you are what we can say a small player or a medium player, please focus on these things and create a niche for yourself. There you can make a market, as well as you can also earn profit at the same time. Thank you, Ashok, for your views. Now I come to Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, Head of Technical, PPG Asian Paints Private Limited, and wanted to hear his views in the coating sector, which is both industrial as well as automotive coatings, and how do we see the India market by 2025. So over to Mr. Sanjeev Gupta.
Good afternoon, everyone. Basically, automotive and industrial segments are increasing actually by market share penetration in India. But yes, decorative segment is still very, very big, which is reverse globally. Globally, industrial segment is much bigger than the decorative segment. So that's a reverse in India. But if you look at automotive industry in India is basically approximately 4th largest in the world, and after Germany. And so India has grown, but last 2-3 years, the automotive segment has gone bad because of the COVID and chip shortage. So that's reversed. That India had a dream of reaching 5 million vehicles basically by somewhere around 2020 or 2021, which has gone down. And we reached our peak somewhere in 2018 and 19 of 4 million. And last year it was closed at something around 3.6 million, basically. So similarly, in two-wheeler space, India was the largest manufacturers of two-wheeler in terms of two-wheelers, actually, which India made close to 24.5 million vehicles, actually. But last year it closed something around 17.7, so which is pretty lower, actually, compared to what would have India was aiming at, actually. But looking at that, the growth has come back. If you look at this year, the chip shortages are gone, actually. The COVID productivity is not at all hurting the industry. So we have seen a pretty good rise in the basically sales. All the automotive companies have a waiting list, so there's a huge pent-up demand. And what we foresee, basically, India by 2025-26 can easily do a CAGR of around 5%. And we can go up to basically a 4.5 to 4.8 million vehicles. So that should basically give a good boost to the economy as well as basic country. There are new car manufacturers planning to come to India. Like you've seen, one Kia Motors have brought in such a huge jump in the industry. Basically, it's given a good boost to the segment, actually. So what we feel is the paint industry should be easily able to do a 12 to 15% basically volume of value growth by 2025. There are some factors which are basically have to be looked into, like there are many factors suddenly which is coming up last year. I see somewhere there's a disturbance coming in. Yeah, so raw material inflation has been a very, very big, actually. Commodity price, specialty raw materials were not available. So they are some of the factors which will weigh very strongly on this. Then there has been huge crude actually price increase, and which is affecting the solvents and availability of specialty solvents, basically for the automotive segments or paint segment. Then there has been increase in the steel as well as transportation prices, which is again having an effect, actually. So this way may the industry may see a good top line growth, but there can be a possibility of bottom line may not be as good in case of these conditions. Go ahead for a slightly longer period.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for giving an overview on the industrial and automotive coatings industry, and the way the automobile industry is moving up month by month. It's a good sign. Plus, also the transition which is happening, the shift which is happening from internal combustion engine to, say, EV, that's also catching up slowly. Now I come back to my last speaker, Dr. Soma Dasgupta, application engineer, GC/MS, Agilent Technologies. Giving, with this background of what we can say, a good market for everybody, we are looking at, say, double-digit growth is what everybody said. So how will your products like FTIR help in analysis of coatings without disturbing the product?
Yeah, so generally in case of the paints and coatings industry, we need to study the composition of the material over a period of time. And we also need to study the chemical composition. So FTIR is an excellent technique which helps in analysis of this coating, in the sense that infrared radiation is exposed, and the groups which the chemical groups which have the potential to absorb this will give a reading, and then it is Fourier transformed and then read. Now, when it comes to sampling, it can, one of the ways of analysis can be taking the sample to the lab. So this in a way is a sort of destructive technique because you're scraping off the surface. There could be many such samples where we cannot scrape off the surface. So, and there could be studies as such like weathering type of studies, what happens when it is exposed to wind, sun or rain. So there we have this FTIR or handheld systems which can be taken to near the surface of the sample. And of course, depending upon the type of sample or the coating, we can have the material getting studied. So there are basically 5 types of sampling interfaces. So one is the spherical diamond ATR. Then we have external reflectance, grazing angle, diamond ATR, and germanium ATR. So in a spherical diamond ATR, the sample is brought in contact with the window of the instrument for direct analysis, and only the top 2 to 3 microns of the sample is measured. So this will be more ideal for solids, liquids, sometimes pastes and gels. Then let's say if we are talking about a coating on a metal surface, like let's say car paint. So then the reflectance, the FTIR from the FTIR system, the radiation is sent to the sample surface and it goes and hits the metal sheet beneath, and that reflects back to the system. So that is known as the external reflectance. So like this, there are 5 different types of sampling interfaces. And these, the best part about this system is that these sampling interfaces can be opened and reconnected without any specific alignment required. That is, you don't have to make the instrument, bring it to a certain type of alignment to correspond to a specific type of sample. So all of this can be done on site, and this FTIR weighs around 2 kgs. So it's very easy and to carry on the field. And there are also interfaces where it can be reached for difficult surfaces. Let's say somebody wants to, I mean, it could be, I don't know if somebody does, but let's say if somebody wants to study the coating on an aircraft. So you cannot bring an aircraft to the lab. So the lab now goes to the aircraft. So you carry the FTIR over there and then just measure it. So that's how it works. And of course, the material needs to have infrared absorbing and scattering surfaces, and reflective metal surfaces, of course, and films. And we can also analyze bulk materials. So bulk materials would involve powders and granules. This is typically in the pharmaceutical industries, but if you do have samples which are there in bulk and would like to measure it, then even that is possible on the system.
Thank you, Dr. Soma Das Gupta. We have come to the end of the first round. We are at 16:03. Another 27 minutes, and we will extend it by another 15 minutes for the Q&A part of it. So I would request all my panelists, if they can take 2 minutes for each of the 2 rounds. And before I jump to the second round, I would thank Mr. Dhiresh Gosalia for answering at least 5 questions which I see in the Q&A window out of the 8. He has already answered 5. That has made my task easier. And I would request all my delegates to please type in their questions. So the experts are out here who can answer all your queries. And in case they are not being answered online, we will definitely take it offline. But please type in your questions in the Q&A window and not in the chat window. So I request. And the second announcement is I come with the ICN play and win context. And here, please type in your answers in the chat window box. So please, your answers should be in the chat window box. And my first question goes live, which is handheld spectroscopy gives answers non-destructively. I repeat, handheld spectroscopy gives answers non-destructively. And there are 2 choices, yes or no. I repeat, handheld spectroscopy gives answers non-destructively. The answer is either yes or no. So now I move to the second round and I reverse the order here. So I again come back to Dr. Soma Das Gupta, Application Engineer, GCMS, Agilent Technologies. And her second question would be, how can we classify samples into groups using the chemical formation obtained from the analysis? So
Yeah.
over to Dr. Soma Dasgupta.
Thank you, sir. So when it comes to analysis, of course, there are a large number of instruments. There's a lot of data that we have, but how good is this data? I mean, is it really of practical use? So that's where statistics comes into play. And some of the major problems that comes when it comes to these kind of groupings or trying to classify different samples based on their chemical composition is not the lack of statistical knowledge, but the gap between the theoretical statistics and application of it to real samples. And of course, there is this painstaking task of finding out the individual components in each of the samples and then classifying it, running those tests. So there are a multitude of statistical techniques which are available. One such as the PCA technique or principal component analysis. So here there are softwares, of course, to do this job. And now when it comes to a normal commercial software, the problem is that the data present with an analyst is in the form of an instrument data file. So this has to be converted either into a CSV type of file or an Excel type of input, then inserted into the software, and then we need to go for further classification. So while we have a software called as MPP or Mass Profiler Professional, which can cater multiple data files from different instruments. So let's say I have only one sample which has been analyzed on LCMS, which has been analyzed on GCMS, ICP-MS, and on maybe on an HPLC as well. And I want to find whether this corresponds to one particular type of paint sample or the parent mixture or composition. So we analyze chemically the individual these samples and then push them into the software. So what the software does is, for GCMS data, it automatically identifies the compound based on the mass spectral information. And for LCMS data, it looks at the peak profile and tries to group similar sample by using the peak profile. So then by using a set of known standards, we can create a model. So let's say we have formulation A, formulation B, formulation C. Multiple measurements of those have been done, and certain unique features in terms of the chemical composition. Let's say formulation A has got compound A as a unique compound. Formulation B has got a compound B as a unique compound, and doing this manually is going to be very difficult. So the software will automatically find out those compounds by using a feature finding type of algorithm, where these compounds will be uniquely identified, and based on these compounds, it will create certain groups. Now, when I have a sample and somebody wants to answer a question such as whether this meets the QC criteria or whether this comes from a main formulation A, B, or C. So we just run the sample, put it into the data classification model, and the software will put it in the cluster where it belongs to. So that's how we can perform data classification using the chemical composition details of a sample.
Thank you, Dr. Soma Dasgupta. I would request my all other panelists to be short because we have to finish by 4:30 and then we will take the questions for another 15 minutes. I come back to Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, and my question to him would be the new innovations in the industrial and automotive coatings, how it will balance growth as well as sustainability at the same time. Since you are from the R&D sector, this question is very relevant for you, sir.
Yeah, I see all the developments, whatever are happening, or the new technologies which are getting introduced in automotive industrial coating segments are basically in the space of improving productivity and sustainability. So activities like each activity I can get into is energy saving is one of the most important work which has been taken by the automotives, and the paint industry is working on by reducing the shorter bake windows, where like the paints which were baked at a temperature of 160 degrees for 10 minutes. Now we are looking at a primer which can be baked at eco primers for 150 degrees centigrade, 140 degrees centigrade. top coats which are baked at 140 degrees centigrade are being looked at baked at 125 degrees centigrades. Number of layers are reduced actually. Earlier, most of the coatings till date in India, basically car manufacturers are 2C1B, like 2 coats and 1 bake. There are some companies which are shifted to 3 coats of layers, 3 layers and then 1 baking, so which are reducing energy, your energy footprint of the organization. We expect by 2025, most of the car manufacturers will move into 3C1B platform. Organizations are working on basically improving corrosion performance, which will reduce basically repainting cycles and improve the productivity. And similarly, work has been there on waste reduction. Most of the paint industry is working on usage of robots along with the OEMs, so that the paint wastages which are used in the application has reduced drastically. Then for lots of places we have implemented a water-based paints in refinish segment. So few companies have already implemented that, but few companies are still in the process. So we expect that water-based paints to be implemented for the refinish segments with all the OEMs. Another new technology which has totally come in is in electrical vehicles, where for the battery packs of the coating, there is a need for special thermal gap fillers, potting compounds, and adhesives for their need actually. And the coatings industries are working in that to have a products basically for that segment, which is totally new for and much demanding. So that the one of the areas is like fire protection. The car basically should not catch fire on any condition because of the battery. So the new coatings which are looking for the electrical segment is a fireproof paint actually, or fire resistant paint. The new technology again one can be looked into is direct to metal technology, which is very getting popular in terms of your industrial segments, where you are reducing number of layers from 2-3 layers to just 1 layer, and gives which is already commercialized with many tractor manufacturers as well as under chassis paints. So these are the few areas which I feel are the areas can grow and take into the newer challenges for the automotive sectors.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Now to Mr. Ashok Kumar Gain ji. And my question to him is, with this increased competition, how can one protect its turf? So over to Mr. Ashok ji.
Yeah. Yes. I have unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I would request you, sir, all for short answers, so
Okay.
that we can take all the 3 rounds and then move to Q&A. So my question to you is, sir, is how do we protect the turf?
Okay. Praveen ji, I've been talking, I did talk about it, and my own, a very precious word of advice is to all of us is that go niche. Go niche is one that it solves quite many problems of ours, because niche can give us more money, more profits against if we go, let's say if we are doing 10 crores and earning 2%, and again going 5 crores and earning 10%. You see, and SME, MSME needs more this thing to strand or wither these type of atmosphere. Now, the second thing is that we absorb the best practices in the industry, improve our systems and processes, and to save cost and increase quality. Then we have to be, very good at all the business tactics, or let's say business tools and systems, so as to save on money and increase profit. That's another thing. That also includes going digital and going very fast. And then you are concentrating on your real customers, and you're not going mass, like we know that 20% of the customers give us 80% of the business, and so we have to be in SME or MSME, we have to be very focused on these such things. And then, of course, today, for advertisement, you need huge budgets. So going on social media and digital marketing being conversant with this sort of a thing is very, very essential, because 70% of the consumers, or likely to be our consumers, are digital or on social medias. So, and maximum automation in our businesses is one of the answers that we must build on.
Thank you, Ashokji. Vipulji wanted to understand from you, how do we encourage small players to move to mid-end segment? And there are top players, there are smaller players, but in the mid-end segment, there are not too many players. So how do we encourage small players to move into the mid-end segment so that that ecosystem can support the paint and the coating industry? So over to Mr. Vipul Shah. If you can unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, okay. There is a big gap in case of a pigment manufacturer. There are top players, the big players, and there are multiple small players. Now there is really a big suffocation happening to a small players, like they want to expand. Speakers mention about the lot of growth happening on the paint side. Now to meet up this requirement, pigment industries also needs to gear up with a larger production. So I think one of the area would be a faster clearance for the EC, so that the new unit can come up very quickly. Second should be, there should be some advantage, some quick refund for some few duties, GSTs, etc. to the small players, so that they can come as a strong support, strong supply chain support to the paint industries. So that's another need is we need to have a very strong pigment manufacturer association. Association does exist, but it should be more stronger to take care of the needs of the small players.
Thank you, sir, for a very short and precise and concise answer. Now I come to Mr. Debajit Som from Colorscapes Group, and I wanted to understand from him, which is a different aspect altogether, which is on the distribution part of it. So how can distribution strategy be strengthened in the paints and coating industry? Because now the market would be more aggressive with the increased competition. So is there a scope for online distribution of paints and coatings? Because presently nobody has done this in India. So over to Mr. Debajit Som for your very short answer.
Yeah, I'll give you a very short answer on the distribution side, but can I just give one point came to my mind. As an industry, paint industry, as an industry, I'm talking about everyone in the supply chain, talking about the paint manufacturers to pigment manufacturer, everyone. We in India, we are actually habituated to manufacturing products, but we are not looking at the impurities level of it. So, I mean, like we will say that, okay, we're making titanium dioxide, we're making so much of titanium dioxide, but we don't look at what should not be there in our product, which is a main criteria in the global scenario from quality perception point of view. Things like, we know that PA should not be there, how the global regulations are changing. Germany has come up with the new regulations in the tissue paper. You cannot have more than 2 ppb of ingress. So there's so many things. So I think not only the big boys, even everyone has to actually put focus on what should not be there in our product rather than what should be there. We know what should be there, but we have to understand what should not be there in our product to be globally benchmarked. And regarding distribution, like online platforms are the way to go. And if you look at the whole big market, any country you go, the big boys control about 60 to 70% of the market share everywhere in the paint sector. So it's just I think it's just a matter of time when we'll be buying all these paints and other things to the online platform. B2C will be something which will be very popular for times to come when we are talking about paint, not necessarily the backward integration industries, supporting industries like pigments and all, because those are technical sales. Paint is a brand sale, and other products like what goes into paint is more technical sales. So that will not come in the online platform, but the paint will definitely be on the B2C online platform.
Thank you, Devajit ji. My question to Sagar Goel ji would be the common facilities for paints and coatings for the MSMEs, which can be supported either by the government or by industry associations, so that the cost can be reduced. Because what's happening is, because of the impact of the rising raw material cost, because of the crude prices going haywire, it is impacting the top line, as well as it is impacting the bottom line of the companies. So your views, Sagar ji.
As was discussed, the government needs to simplify the regulations. This does not mean not ensuring environmental production, but really supporting companies to set up such carbon neutral facilities. At IPCA, we are regularly representing the interest of the industry to the government, and that is one of our main principles for forming the organization. We have been instrumental in reducing the GST in paints and coating industry from 28% to 18%. In this regard, as SME, MSME, and SME want more representation in policy making. Things can't be sorted out just by sitting in AC chambers by the ministry officials. Ground knowledge is a key, and we are ones to provide that. We have more than 1,700 members in our association, employing, and our MSME sector, those who are our members are employing more than 150,000 employees in their organizations. So everybody knows that MSME are one of the largest employer provider, job provider to the industry. So more scopes and benefits needed to be provided to the SME, MSME sector. Subsidized testing facility or setting up government facilities for testing their raw materials, for more education. As you know, we regularly conduct seminars and biennial conferences to educate the paint manufacturers by bringing close the raw material supplier, from the not only from India but from the globe, to facilitate and more technical knowledge to provide to the paint industry. So in the long run, government should set up testing facility in all the states to help the MSME sector. Mr. Praveen, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Sagar ji. Dinesh ji, what are the new innovations which will help the impact decorative and industrial segments? If you can talk about some of them.
So I'll very briefly just say differentiation should be the key. Ashok Ganji has already spoken a lot about product innovation, so I would not repeat that. Ashok ji has extensively given a lot of product innovation, but I would say a differentiation not only in product but in distribution, at the same time product positioning. So these three things: product positioning, distribution, and product. I guess this could be a key, and lot of and luckily now this industry is in highlight. So as the last what we saw, the Gem Paint also was partly acquired by Astral. So there's a big interest. So funding should not be much of an issue. If you have a right strategy, I guess this is what would really help MSME, or going from small to little, medium to large.
Thank you, Dinesh ji. Just for the information of the delegates, Jashan's Industries would be soon coming up with an IPO, and I hope they will do well. Or my best wishes from the entire delegate as well as from ICN, Indian Chemical News, that you do well and make a niche for yourself so that you can contribute to the entire ecosystem, sir.
Thank you very much.
My second set of questions before I move to the third round, and I would request all my speakers to be very precise because it is already 16:25. I will take the two questions and then move to my third round. Please type in your answers in the chat window. I repeat, please type in your answers in the chat window. My second question starts: which detector provides molecular weight calculation with calibration? I repeat, which detector provides molecular weight calculation with calibration? There are four options: RID plus viscometer, RID plus light scattering, triple detection GPC MDS, all of the above. I repeat, which detector provides molecular weight calculation with calibration? First, RID plus viscometer. Second, RID plus light scattering. Third, triple detection GPC MDS, and all of the above. Now I come to the third question, and I would request once again to please type in your answers in the chat window. And my third question starts: GCMS can identify and quantify volatile components in paints. I repeat, GCMS can identify and quantify volatile component in paints. There are two options: yes or no. I repeat, yes or no. With this, we have come with the end of ICN Play and Win contest, but we will continue with our panel discussion of the third round. And again, I reverse the order. So it is Mr. Dinesh Goshalia ji who will speak as the first speaker. And I would request him to be short so that we can take few questions. Will distribution strategy need a rethink, and how it will benefit paints and coatings industry?
That's a great point. Definitely, distribution strategy needs a rethink. If we compare to the number one player, paint company, they have about 35,000 distribution centers, outlets. The reach is fantastic. So if one can plan to go online, last what I checked with Flipkart was they have about 40,000 outlets where they can reach, and they have 70 centers. So I guess distribution strategy needs a rethink for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sagar ji, if you can talk about the impact of strict governmental and environmental regulations. Any quick thought on this, Sagar ji?
Regarding this pollution norm has always been very strict for the coating industry. So the companies are being urged to reduce the carbon footprints, and by reducing their practices, by using more environmental friendly raw material, and the system should go towards the water-based systems from solvent-bottom systems.
Thank you, sir. Dewajit, sir, if you can talk about how we can balance growth and do sustainability at the same time.
Growth is one-way traffic. It's going to happen. What we have to actually ensure is our facilities. And when I was listening to Dr. Dasgupta's presentation with all this, I can tell you there are a lot of raw materials that we can't today test in India. We have to take it to Europe. Even China also doesn't have facilities for some of the testing that happens. And I heard Sagarji, which was telling that we must create those sort of testing facilities for minor regulatory compliances, which are very important in sustaining the the quality journey at that level. Remember, there's a huge potential is available for us to capture, which is the export market as well, in addition to the growth that is happening in domestic.
Thank you, sir. Vipul Saji, if you can talk about regulating environment regulations so that the supply chain of the paint industry is not disturbed, because that's also very much required to be done.
Definitely, because pigment manufacturing involves complex organic chemistry. So definitely the need of the hour is the right environmental policy. Unit needs to be SRLT compliant. That is what we are looking at on the environmental side. And second, on the government policy, like recently there was the anti-dumping duty imposed on one of the raw material, which is manufactured by only one company in India, and still without any understanding of the repercussion, government imposed the anti-dumping duty. Those such kind of decisions are very harsh. It invites a big cost to the pigment company and ultimately to the paint industries.
Thank you, sir. Ashokji, if you can, sorry, if you can talk about growth and sustainability, keeping in view consumer preferences and government regulation. The question is the same, but I'm just putting it in a different way. Ashokji, can you hear me?
Just a minute. Yes, can you repeat the question, please?
Balancing growth and sustainability, keeping in view consumers' preferences and government regulations.
Praveenji, you see, government today, these regulations can prick you anytime, as has happened with us in VOC levels and lead restriction, you know. Lead restriction, the law is to have a paint containing 90 ppm lead and other things. So 90 ppm, you can understand how minuscule of a thing is that and how can you detect it. So other thing, what I foresee is that they are going to be very harsh on solvent based paints in future. And of course, the Carbon Emission Act is going to be regulated in a very strict way. And talking on behalf of for SME or MSME, they are going to be in a soup very earlier than what they think is. And this solvent-based industry is going to get hurt in a very big way. So the only way forward that I see is going water for water-based things. And as Dinesh Gosalia ji has started with high gloss emulsions, we should also switch to high gloss emulsion-based paints based on their things. So that is the only way forward. And government is going to be very, very harsh because you are a signatory for the carbon emission, this thing, a world signatory, you know. So they are going to abide by what they have signed. So that is going to be very, very strict. And other thing that you said was, you say government regulations and view consumer preferences. So you see, we have to be very near our customer. We have to move out of our places, our rooms, and see what he wants, and be very specific on his desires and requirements, and not presume by the whatever data and whatever things happens. So that is consumer preferences. You have to be very, very near the customer. So that is what I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sanjeev ji, if you can talk about the same question on government regulation and with respect to industrial and automotive coatings. Very short answer, sir, from your side.
Sorry, I was on mute actually. So government regulations are basically in automotive sector, it was one which moved out from the automotive segment from like Bharat 4 and others, which made automotive industry to struggle, and it took some time, and that way the production dropped actually for many companies. So so that way it has effects. But government is putting up like anti-dumping duties in India where cheaper raw materials are not available. So that is hurting paint segment, paint industry regularly, because local vendors are not able to meet the full need. Biocide regulation is brought in by being discussed by the government of India, where all companies have to register, and that is creating some time, though government, Indian paint industry is protesting against that. Plastic recycling is coming in actually, and that's basically is a big issue. Basically how that can be monitored. So that's the industry is facing an issue. And what has been told by Dr. That a chemical management, which government is planning to put, though it's still at discussion stage. So these are the areas basically which are regulations which will have impact on the automotive paint industry.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Soma Dasgupta, your last point is what should be the instrument set up for the analysis of volatile components in paints? And then
For volatile components in paints, it's a very easy setup. So we just need to connect a headspace system, which will sample the vapors and then pass it on to the GCMS system.
Thank you, ma'am, for what we can say a very short answer. Now we have come to the end of the panel discussion. Let me take a few questions which are there. Some of them have already been answered. 13 of them have already been answered. 9 are there still open. And so we will take the open part. Can you explain the few segments for MTO, toluene, mixed xylene projected growth in coming years versus oxo alcohols? So who would like to take this, sir? Direshji, will you or anybody from?
Sorry, we are into water-based, so I would not know much about solvents.
So I would request Sanjeev ji.
Toluene for sure will be obsolete. Toluene based system in any case. I mean, it's going out in the world regulatory environment. People are getting out of toluene anyway. Acetone has already gone, so toluene based system will be this one. Can't actually comment about the others as yet.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Abhay Patwardhan is talking about, is the PU formulations taking share from other traditional formulations in the market? So Sanjeev ji is writing an answer. So would you take it up, sir, Sanjeev ji?
Yeah. So the polyurethane coatings are basically replacing big way the traditional coatings. I can give some examples. Like look at the refinish industry, which was 100% nitrocellulose some time back. In last 10 years, it's 100% converted to polyurethanes. Similarly, if you look at all the plastic coatings in two-wheelers, which the plastic parts are very, very big in two-wheelers, they are all 100% PU now. And so that's a big change. Similarly, wood coatings in the segments of wood, actually, it's growing at a very, very fast pace. So this is a segment basically which is going. PU is actually the next big thing. Actually, that's it. So I can elaborate more, but it will take lots of time.
Oh, thank you, sir. Rosina Khan is talking about two questions. What type of innovation is going on for heat absorbing paint or / heat reflective paint? She's talking more from a roof paints kind of a thing. And for solvent-based paints, are we looking for green solvent instead of conventional solvents? If so, what are those solvents? So who would like to take this?
I can take on green solvents basically.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, see, green solvents are catching up basically till date. See what happened, it's a catch-22 scenario. Green solvents basically like your butanol, etc., which can be produced from molasses. So these products are basically cheaper when the solvent prices are going up. So that's where so green solvents are basically used or preferred nowadays, depending on the end industry requirements actually. So sustainability is into requirement of many organizations. So we have been like working with toluhydroxy compounds which are made by Jayant Agro, etc., and we have implemented it with green solvent as a. So they are given us some cost advantage also. It shows up sustainable product usage. Similarly, there are many basically butyl acetate through your other sources also are being getting ethyl acetate from molasses is being tried actually and should get successful.
And what about heat absorbing paint? Any answer?
I would like,
Yeah, Sagar ji.
Yeah.
yeah, I would like to, in architectural coatings also, there are some heat reflecting coatings are there, which we say cool roof coating for the roof itself by using TiO2 and some microspheres and glass beads. So you can reduce the temperature in the room from 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. These are very effective coatings, roof as well as for wall coatings also. So some emulsions are there, you can use it and get the results.
Sanjay Devasthale is talking about, is there any scope for backward integration for paint manufacturers? So Mr. Bipul Shahji or Ashok Kumar ji, if you can answer this.
Sir, I am only speaking, in my mind, I'm speaking on behalf of or in perspective of MSME. So MSME, I perceive, is very tight with funds, and how can they do backward integration, which needs lots of funds.
Okay. So Dhiresh ji, will you take this up, sir?
Sir, backward integration is like a huge thing. It's like a technology has to be developed. So currently Jason says 170 products. So itni technology develop करने के लिए इतना समय चाहिए, इतना वो चाहिए, and what kind of paint? I mean, if it is Asian paint, Berger, ठीक है उनके लिए. Other than that, I don't think it's worth it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Nupur from Maersk is talking about, we want to understand from the perspective of supply chain, which caters to majority of need for paints and coatings, how important is for the industry to look at sustainable options for logistics, which caters to a large consumption of carbon emission. So I would request Mr. Devajit Som, sir, if you can take this up.
I'm reading the question again so that I can understand it properly. To understand from the perspective of supply chain, which caters to majority of need for paints and coatings, the industry look at sustainability for logistics. I don't know. I mean, I've not understood the question actually.
He's saying she's talking about that even in logistics, she is looking at sustainable options from a logistic point of view. So he's talking about end-to-end sustainability.
Yeah, at
that
this
is what
point,
I have been able to decipher.
At this point of time, I think every panelist will agree that we are badly hit by the logistics part, especially the shipping companies globally, not only India, just globally. We would like them to actually come back to an acceptable limit of logistics cost so that we all can survive. I mean, I can give you an example. The pigments, people will agree, pigments used to cost 10 cents per kilo for ocean freight to Europe. Currently, it is sitting at 50 euro cents per kilo. It has almost become from 1% to 2% to 10% of the price of the pigment.
Right.
Thank you, sir. One last question. This is from Yogesh Kakde. How do you see the fluorescent pigment growth in paint market? And I would request Ashok Kumar ji, because he's talking about a lot of different types of paint. So fluorescent pigment, any data or any, how do you see the growth, sir?
Praveenji, I can speak for ourselves. We've been manufacturing fluorescent paints, but our consumption has been minimal, very, very low, and the market and demand has been abysmal. It is very low in India. It is very low in India. So I don't foresee anything. And it's a very, the demand, I do not know. I have been to quite many sectors, but whatever the pickup is there, the pickup in 10 kgs, 1 kg, 5 kgs. So that is the type of demand they have.
Okay, thank you, sir. One last question.
Mr. Praveen, I would like to just add, sorry, in this case, actually.
Okay, sir.
Sorry to intervene, actually. See, like I will like, there are two segments in fluorescent. One is there are very few exterior durable grades available in terms of fluorescent pigment. Most of the fluorescent pigment available are in not exterior durable. So that's the reason it mostly goes for interiors, like all the streaks lining for appliances, electrical appliances, etc. And that's where it has to be sold actually, then they are demanded. Two, we ourselves introduced basically when we were supplying to Nokia, we introduced some of the mobile phones where we used exterior durable fluorescent pigment. But again, the market demand, it was not very, very picked up. So our industry is not that flashy to take up those fluorescent, especially for in the plastic applications, etc. That's it.
Let me take this last question, and I thought it was relevant, which was related to EV. This question is from Uma Velupulla, and she's talking about what coating material is used in EV batteries.
Yeah, I will take it up actually. So EV has basically two parts. One is cell actually. So what you hear exactly is not the cell basically. So there are called as a battery packs, and battery packs is made up of basically cells actually, which are very you can say similar to our cells, but their voltages are different. So this cell is made as similar to that of basically it has lots of copper tube and it has a coating on it which is made of PVDF coating actually. So there is a PVDF resin. That's the reason nowadays if you see a shortage of PVDF, basically that is because of lots of PVDF is getting used in electrical cells coating actually. That is one part of it. So then there is a case of battery packs actually. So these cells are like different of the voltage what is required. Like you would have heard, Hyundai Kona can run, it is a 46 kilowatt hours battery pack and it can run 400 kilometers. So it depends on the battery pack, what is the voltage actually, or what is the wattage. It is depend like recently basically like Kia has launched a vehicle which can run 700 kilometers in one charge. That's basically depends on the battery pack capacity of. So battery packs are basically having a lots of coating needs. One is the shell basically, which is made of cast aluminum. So that's a E-coat is required for that, or a powder coating is required for that. Then inside this basically battery packs, there are need of thermal gap fillers because any battery when you charge or discharge, it generates heat actually. So and the performance of battery depends a lot actually on the heat dissipation. If I increase the battery charge by 1 degree, the running kilometers will reduce by almost 10%. So that's the reason heat dissipation is very, very critical. So cooling of battery packs, so there are heat dissipating compounds which are used, which are called thermal gap fillers basically, which help into dissipation of the heat from battery. So these are the special coating compounds which are developed actually. These are the newer technologies. Earlier, the industry has been using thermal pads. Actually, now these are the coating. Then there are need of special adhesives basically. So which can keep these all the battery components inside properly. There are some structural adhesives required, which are required. Then there are potting compounds which are required basically. So there are many requirements in the segments. There are for there are copper conductors are used basically. They need a special powder coated which can be conductive.
Sir, I will have to stop here.
Okay,
I'm getting signals from other speakers. So let me thank all my speakers. They stayed for more than 20 minutes extra. I would really thank all of them from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Dhiresh Goshalia, Chairman and Managing Director, Jashan Industries Limited. Mr. Sagar Goyal, President, Indian Paint and Coating Association. Mr. Devajit Som, Group Managing Director, Colorscapes Group. Mr. Bipul Shah, Chairman and Managing Director, Bipul Organics Limited. Mr. Ashok Kumar Gain, Joint Managing Director, Acro Paints Limited. Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, Head of Technical PPG, Asian Paints Private Limited. Dr. Shoma Das Gupta, Application Engineer GC/MS. Agilent Technologies. Let me also announce the winners of the ICN Play and Win contest. Just a minute. So the first answer was a yes, which was handle spectroscopy gives answers for non-destructively, which is a yes. And the winner is Kushal Banerjee, Chief General Manager, Business Development, HPCL. The second answer was which detector provides molecular weight calculation with calibration, and the answer was all of the above. And the answer is Manoj K. Menon. He has not given his company name. So Manoj K. Menon is the winner for the second question. The third question was GCMS can identify and quantify volatile components in paints. It's yes. And the third winner is Himanshu Gupta, founder, Renergizer Industries Private Limited. So these are the winners. I would like to congratulate all the winners for participating and winning. And those who have participated and not won, please keep on playing with us and come so that you can win the next time. Let me thank our supporting partner, Agilent Technologies, for their support. Let me thank all the delegates who registered and attended for today's e-conference. Those who have registered and not have attended can view the recorded video in a day or two, which would be uploaded on our Indian Chemical News website. All our e-conferences, we would have done 60 e-conferences, and all the videos are there on our archive on our website. So please have a look at it. So once again, many thanks to all my speakers, delegates, and all my colleagues who were at the back end trying to support me and making this a tremendous success. I still see 100-odd participants in this room. I would like to thank once again. This is Praveen Prashant signing off for now, to meet again on June 22nd, 2022 with a different topic, which is sports at 2:55 p.m. Till then, take care and stay safe. Goodbye and namaste from Praveen here in New Delhi. Thank you.